Hello, boys, girls, parents, families, and friends of St. Marguerite Duval Parish. My name is Liza, and I'm excited to share with you this week's Gospel reading. Before we begin, let us quiet our minds and open our hearts to receive God's words. This week we will be reading from the Catholic Children's Bible, the Gospel of Mark, chapter 4, verses 35 to 41. On the evening of that same day, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let us go across to the other side of the lake." So they left the crowd. The disciples got into the boat in which Jesus was already sitting, and they took him with them. Other boats were there too. Suddenly, a strong wind blew up, and the waves began to spill over into the boat, so that it was about to fill with water. Jesus was in the back of the boat, sleeping with his head on a pillow. The disciples woke him up and said, "Teacher, don't you care that we are about to die?" Jesus stood up and commanded the wind, "Be quiet." And he said to the waves, "Be still." The wind died down and there was a great calm. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Why are you frightened? Do you still have no faith?" But they were terribly afraid and began to say to one another, "Who is this man? Even the wind and the waves obey him." So today's gospel reading tells us that Jesus was in a boat with his disciples when a big storm came and the waves started crashing against the boat and water started coming into the boat, filling it up that the boat almost sank. Have you ever been in a boat that maybe you were in bad weather in a storm? What did it feel like? Were you afraid? What do you think Jesus was feeling? Was Jesus afraid? Jesus was sleeping during the time. But when the disciples woke him up, what did he say to the disciples? Jesus told the disciples why they were afraid. He asked them, "Why are you afraid? Do you not have any faith?" Jesus told the wind and the sea to be quiet and to be still. And the wind stopped blowing and the waves stopped crashing against the boat. If you had been one of the disciples on that boat, with the wind blowing and the waves crashing, do you think you would have trusted Jesus, that everything was going to be okay? Sometimes when everything around us is scary and is going wrong, it can be so hard for us to have faith in God and to trust. We can feel like God is no longer with us, and it is hard to see how things will get better. A perfect example is COVID. It seems like COVID and this pandemic has been going on forever now. We've been in it for about 1.5 years now. That's a long time. And it's so hard to wonder and to trust if things are going to get better. But in reading this gospel today, Jesus tells the disciples not to be afraid. They should know that God is always with them, especially in the difficult times. And again, it's so important to remember that even during this pandemic, God is there with us. God works through us and in us and through others to help and support us during our difficult times. I'm going to share with you now one of my favorite poems called Footprints, and I'm going to read it to you. One night, a man had a dream. He dreamed he was walking along the beach with the Lord. Across the sky flashed scenes from his life. For each scene, he noticed 2 sets of footprints in the sand. One belonged to him, and the other to the Lord. When the last scene of his life flashed before him, He looked back at the footprints in the sand. He noticed that many times along the path of his life, there was only one set of footprints. He also noticed that it happened at the very lowest and saddest times in his life. This really bothered him, and he questioned the Lord about it. Lord, you said that once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I have noticed that during the most troublesome times in my life, there is only one set of footprints. I don't understand why, when I needed you most, you would leave me. The Lord replied, my precious, precious child, I love you and I would never leave you. During your times of trial and suffering, when you see only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. So, boys and girls, from that poem and the gospel reading today, I just want you to be assured never to lose hope, never to doubt Jesus. Jesus is always there with us. He is carrying us during our most difficult times, and He's carrying us by the hands. He's never going to let you go. If anything I have learned from this pandemic is to be still. Be still, quiet your minds, and listen to the Lord. By being still, that means taking time, praying, spending time with Jesus, and listening to what He has to say. By listening, I mean maybe He's speaking to you through your parents, through a loved one, maybe in the gospel reading. So by reading the Bible, pick up your Bible and just read a small little verse and listen to what Jesus is trying to say to you. But be still and trust in the Lord. I said it a couple of weeks ago and I am saying it again. Be still, trust, and have faith. God bless you all. Until next time, have a blessed week.